Hello, welcome back to Chasing the Transfer. I think we're on show 4 now. Graeme Bailey is with me once again. We're in for a roller coaster ride tonight. We're not going to focus on one team because there's too much going on across the board. We'll get to Saudi Arabia at some part in this show. I'm sure it's Graham's favourite topic, so we're definitely not going to ignore it. But we've got Declan Rice, we've got Sandro Tonali, we've got Urian Timber, we've got Mason Mount, we've got Mahrez Caicedo, we've got Højlund covered, we've got Tottenham's new goalkeeper Vicario to talk about. We've got potential of Liverpool signings. There's loads to get through. Get your questions in throughout the next hour, and I promise you we will do our best to cover every single topic that is thrown at us. Graeme Bailey of 90 Min is with me. He is one of the busiest men in sports journalism. Been sat in that room all day, mate. Have you managed to get out for some air?
Yeah, I try not to sit at the desk too much. I go in the front room now and then, or outside in the Costa del Teesside, the sunshine. But yeah,
you've actually got sunshine up there, have you?
It's been boiling today. Yeah, it's been great again. Another wonderful day up here. I know you're shocked at that, Dean.
I am shocked, mate.
I know you get nosebleed past Watford, don't you, Dean? But
I'm sweating. Yeah, I can tell you that much.
It's been good. It's just managing. It's like you got to keep got to keep near a desk because we've got to keep these phones charged up, don't we?
Honestly, yeah, my phone typically dies around 1 to 2 p.m. at the moment. I'm not sure if that says about how old my handset is, or if I'm genuinely making that many calls. I think it's a bit of a mix of both. Thanks. Keep those questions coming in early. Appreciate all of them that are landing. We are going to lead on the story of the day, which is Declan Rice. So if you've got specific questions around Declan Rice or Arsenal or West Ham or Man City, then feel free to drop those right now and we will cover them. Declan Rice, yeah, that second bid obviously went in from Arsenal, wasn't enough. Was it within hours? There was a new twist in it saying Man United might get involved, but it's the Man City link that is currently causing the biggest impression across football as people wonder whether they're actually going to bid. Now, earlier today, it was reported quite heavily, wasn't it, that Man City were going to bid today. A lot of people were like, the bid's being prepared. Not yet, but let's see if it actually lands. I'm intrigued by the Man City interest. I'm also intrigued to see if Arsenal let this slip from their grasp. They had one hand on the Premier League trophy. Manchester City snatched it away. They've had one hand on Declan Rice for about the last 2 months. Surely Man City aren't going to snatch him away as well. Graeme, what is your view on the Man City interest in Declan Rice?
I think it's genuine. As we know, Dane, it's been there for quite a while now. I tweeted before saying City's long-term interest, where people think that City have only just shown an interest in the last week. It is long-term. United, Liverpool, City, they've all been, arguably, they've been looking at him longer than Arsenal have. Really. And they had this conflab, didn't they? All the clubs were wondering whether he was a centre-half or defensive midfielder. I think that City do want to bring in a big name in that midfield department. They've lost Gundogan. There was confirmation yesterday that he was going to Barcelona, which we knew anyway. And there's still question marks over Calvin Phillips, massive question marks. He came out after the England duty and said that he still had unfinished business at City, things to do, but he also knows that if he has another repeat of that season he's just had, he won't be going to Euros. So if you throw him into the equation as well, Dean, and he is a player who West Ham want, regardless of Rice, he's a player who West Ham want, is the ideal replacement really for Rice in a lot of ways. So I think that's the danger here for Arsenal, because if you throw Phillips in the deal, that makes City's chance of going over 100 million overall, which we know West Ham want ideally 120 including add-ons. So the chance of them going over 100 is quite big now. And it will force Arsenal's hand. It really will. And I don't see how Arsenal can not pay what they need to here. It's a bit reminiscent of what happened with Mudryk, but I think that Rice is clearly their number one target for the whole summer. I think it's a different window now. I think he sees Rice as one of the last pieces of the jigsaw to really challenge City. So even if City come in with this bid, I still don't see how Arsenal let this go, Dean. I agree with you, what you said before. I don't see how Arsenal don't get this done. no matter
So
what they have to
FPL,
pay, really.
yeah, FPL River says surely Rice will go to City if they match Arsenal's bid. I'm going to say that Arsenal are still in the driving seat here, right? I'm going to address that first and foremost. Arsenal's still in control of this situation. I've got a little bit of sympathy for Arsenal here, which people don't seem to have. And that is that people just have an expectation that Arsenal should just front up £100 million and just give West Ham what they want. It might not be as simple as that. We don't know the ins and outs of Arsenal's finances and the structuring of other deals that they've done in recent times. Let's bear in mind, like Arsenal weren't even in Europe a couple of seasons ago. Arsenal weren't near the level that they are suddenly punching at. And with that in mind, and the fact they did deals like that Nicolas Pepe one that they were spreading across like 5 years or whatever it was, those deals are still in place and they are still having to be paid off. And Arsenal have to show that they can finance these deals efficiently. Otherwise, they are gonna run into problems, and they can't just write. They don't have blank checks in front of them. Think, oh, just write one for 100 million, get this one done, and it's sorted. It isn't as straightforward as that. And I know that they're not that far away, but people are annoyed that they're structuring it over like 4 or 5 years. I don't know. I just don't know if it might not be possible for them to do it in 2. We don't know.
I agree, Dean. I don't necessarily think it's in some ways over what length of time. I think it's a combination with that and the overall deal just not being enough. I think if they got to the 100 plus add-ons and it was over that period, I think West Ham would accept that. But I think it's because the overall deal isn't enough and it's over that time. I think when you combine those two negatives, that's what's really annoying West Ham as well, where, fair enough, payers 120 but over extended period, or you can have him for slightly less but over a shorter period. There's got to be some give from Arsenal's point of view as well. And I think West Ham are a little bit frustrated, having had a lot of talks with Arsenal. Arsenal knew what they wanted. So I think there's frustration on that West Ham end. But I think they have to come in on one of those angles, Dean, whether it's to go over 100, which West Ham wants, over a longer period, or whether they're short in that period of payment, but then getting for slightly less. I think they've got to bend somewhere, Arsenal.
Yeah. What do you feel about the relations in terms of moving forward on this one? Because we saw what happened with Arsenal in the past. Like, they've missed out on Mudryk. They were in for Caicedo. They've been burned before, let's say, in the transfer market. And there is now friction, it seems, certainly online, I don't know about in real life, between the Arsenal fans. Edu's been getting loads of stick. Like, I've been on other shows today, and a lot of Arsenal fans are like, Edu out. If we don't get Declan Rice, it's time for Edu out. And I was like, well, he did just get... They've done some really good deals. Like, they've got all your young players signed up to new contracts. You're keeping Saka. You've got Ngabi Jesus. You've got Zinchenko. You've managed to get good, smart little deals like Trossard in between. Like, Arsenal are pretty well built. They've got Saliba staying. I don't know. Like, Arsenal fans do feel a little bit like they're on the edge, though, if this Rice one was to slip through their hands. Do you think that could happen? I mean, do you think they've got a backup plan here if Rice does fall through?
It's interesting. Obviously, they've still got interest in Caicedo. He hasn't gone anywhere yet. He's still been linked to a lot of teams.
But he's 100 million as well, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. It would probably mean Thomas Partey doesn't leave. I think his future is up in the air slightly. As I said on the previous show, I don't think they'd be that upset if he stayed. But obviously, looking at the long term, he's not going to be there. I'm not sure there's a real plan B for Arsenal for Rice team, because I think I agree with you. I think there is a confidence still at the Emirates that they get this done. Are they worried by City? I believe they are. I've been told by people, City is a worry for them. Because at the end of the day, if West Ham agree to deal with them, they will have to match it. But obviously, City aren't. I was going to be nasty there. I was going to say City aren't Chelsea. They're not just going to come in and throw 130 at it. City know the players' worth. They know that as well. So I think Arsenal can have that confidence, Dean, where if Arsenal did bid the same as Man City, if that was accepted, then they know Rice is coming to Arsenal. That's where he wants to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is a prime point. What I would say is that Rice would go to Man City. Like, if Arsenal do continue to fumble around and Man City make an offer, I have little doubts from a couple of people I've spoken to that do know him that he would actually go. You're right at the top of the show where you said, he doesn't really want to leave London. No, he doesn't. Like, ideally, that's true. He's got a very close connection to family and friends in this area that he thinks is a big part of why he's where he is, why he's been able to stay grounded, keep his personality in his game and all these sorts of things. But this is Pep. These are the treble winners. They've got Haaland. They've got De Bruyne. They've got his mates like Foden and Grealish.
And Dean, you're forgetting, he could go and share a flat with his best mate Mason in Manchester.
Yeah, there you go.
Which actually, we do laugh at that, Dean, but that could be a thing. You know what I mean? That could.
I don't know about a flat.
Oh, okay. Sorry, penthouse.
Yeah, there we go.
So, next to Jack Grealish, we know where it'd be. I tell you what, it'd be having a good time, and obviously we go Southgate to talk about people tapping each other up. Guaranteed that Man City Arsenal have.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, let's get through a few comments from people. Joachim says Arsenal should have secured a quality defensive midfielder before signing Havertz. Now it's competition for Rice, and Arsenal have given Chelsea money to buy Caicedo by buying Havertz. Okay, so he's saying, that Chelsea have now got more money to go and get Caicedo because Arsenal have just given Chelsea some money. I mean, it's an interesting one. The problem is they thought Rice was going to be their first signing in the summer. Like, that was the plan. I think even Rice was expecting that, like, he would be unveiled by the end of June. So the Havertz thing was just able to move forward quicker. There wasn't, apart from Bayern Munich, any real competition, and they didn't really match what was going to be on offer. So that was just an easier transfer, I think, in the end, Joachim. So I understand what you're saying. Look, we'll have to see what they do about that other defensive midfielder. I know, Graeme, you've written before about Jorginho potentially leaving Arsenal. Surely that wouldn't be the case if they struggle with other targets.
I think with Jorginho, in an ideal world, I think he would like to go back to Lazio. But the problem is I think he's on about 6 million a year, Dean. Lazio are limited to 2. They have to give him a 3-4 year contract. I think in an ideal world, he'd like to go back to and play for Sarri this summer. He probably knows it might be a bit difficult. But if they get Rice over the line, to move on for someone else like a Lavia, I'd keep an eye on Jorginho because I think then Arsenal are in a position where, let's get him out for what we can. And I think that was always something they were looking at. So I'd keep an eye on Jorginho. He would like to go and play for Sarri, but the money is on there. It's just not plausible. But Lazio's an interesting one because it does seem that this domino effect we're going to probably talk about in the show, Dean, the domino effect in Italy from Tonali going to Newcastle, which means Frattesi will be going to Milan or Inter. But then we've got Milinkovic-Savic, who does look like he might be moving this summer. So if he does move, I could see Jorginho being the one who maybe Sarri pushes for.
Yeah, Milinkovic-Savic definitely likely to be on his way. An interesting story coming out from Sammy Mokbel of the Daily Mail tonight. Man United have inquired about the signing of Declan Rice with a view to offering £40 million plus Harry Maguire and Anthony Elanga. We might as well give live reaction and thoughts to Sammy's story. Sammy, by the way, is an absolute top operator. I have absolutely no doubts about the credentials behind him doing any story. I believe Man United are interested in Declan Rice. I don't believe that Man United have much money, so I can see why there would be £40 million plus a couple of players thrown in. Harry Maguire, absolutely a player that could help West Ham. What's Maguire's wage? 230 or something is it up to at this point?
So and it keeps going up. It keeps going up.
Yeah. So I don't know that West Ham could necessarily afford that because they weren't going to offer Rice.
That's the thing as well, because McTominay was strongly linked as part of the same deal as well in the window. But I know we know David Moyes is huge fans of McTominay and Maguire, but as you said, Dean, the problem is, and it always is with these players on the wage bill, is getting them off the wage bill, isn't it, and affording them. I find it interesting that McTominay is not in Sammy's story there. You do wonder whether he's maybe thinking about elsewhere off the back of that, or West Ham themselves are thinking about something else. Because even though we talk about Rice and City and Arsenal, even if Rice went to Arsenal, I still think Calvin Phillips is a huge call for West Ham. I think even if that didn't happen, I still think there's a huge chance that he ends up at West Ham.
Yeah, I do agree with you. The Elanga part is interesting. I mean, Elanga is definitely a player that is attainable in this window, and he's barely been linked anywhere, is he? I mean, there was a while back he was linked with Everton, but I haven't really said a lot about him.
I think it'd be decent squad player, but he doesn't get in that West Ham starting lineup. But then you can't. It's not all about starting lineups, is it? But Elanga is someone who you'd probably take a chance on. He could be very good, and obviously. Hearing rumours that Ben Rama might be someone who's been targeted by Saudi Arabian Pro League as well. So Elanga might be a good fit there because he just dropped off the radar a bit under Ten Hag, didn't he?
Yeah, but it was a bit of a cult hero at one point, Man United. That chant that was ringing around Old Trafford for a long time.
They've got a player who you probably haven't seen much, Dean, being in your Premier League ivory tower. But I saw a lot of Amad Diallo in the Championship. Yeah, he was outstanding for Sunderland. He really was, Amad Diallo.
Do you think he'll get a chance at United?
He deserves it. Whether he will or not, he's one of these where Sunderland actually think his best positions as a number 10, which he's not going to get his chance there for a long time at Old Trafford. But I think he's better than Elanga. I think he's got an end product, Dean. I really do. So I think he might get a chance.
Yeah. A couple more comments from people. Resting Pilgrim says, I thought West Ham wanted most of the Rice money up front to do their own deals, which is why a player plus money deal interests them. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, they're going to have, people are going to throw players into the mix, they're going to have to be players that West Ham actually wanted in the first place. Graham's been talking about Calvin Phillips and Man City. Man United obviously do have Harry Maguire. Scott McTominay is one that they've been linked with in the past, but Elanga doing the rounds right now. Arsenal don't really have anyone. There's been a few stories about like Balogun or Nketiah, things like that, but I don't think there's anyone that enticing coming from the Arsenal end of things. So it probably have to be a nailed-on cash deal. Don Guna says, City coming in for Rice, still think Arsenal on top of it. Yep, Don, hello, welcome to the chat. We covered that right at the very top, and we believe that Arsenal's still in command of the situation. I think the City story's probably running before it can walk, but there is definite substance to it, and we do need to watch out for what happens next. Getty FPL says, breaking, Fulham have verbally agreed terms with Fred on personal terms. I tell you what, I've noticed a trend in this summer. The big trend is that all stories begin with everyone reporting that someone has agreed personal terms. Why is this trend begun? Like this is just another way to get another layer out of a story. Like this hasn't been a thing in the past, has it? I never a couple of years ago would have done a story on someone agreeing personal terms and then waiting on the rest of the stuff. It just wasn't reported.
Yeah, I think that was when if the crux of the situation is the player accepting a move. So, for instance, that Newcastle and Tonali story, which is progressing today, it's agreed. A big part of that story, Dean, was the fact that Tonali accepted, he wanted to go. So once that was a massive hurdle for Newcastle to get over. We'd seen it with Barella, he wasn't keen. Tonali, once he'd actually said, yeah, I quite fancy it. So that was a big thing. In terms of some of these other deals, it's like, well, yeah. And I would say we've seen Caicedo saying he's agreed personal terms everywhere. It's probably agreed in agreed personal terms with numerous clubs, and so some stories are more applicable than others. And for Fred and Fulham, to be honest, on that one, it would be massive for personal terms because he's on huge money. So, if that was true, Dean, you boys are starting to throw money around if you can manage to agree personal terms with Fred because he's not on small wages at Old Trafford.
Yeah, yes, it's a strange story that the Fred one.
But you'll have the Paulinho money to use, though, Dean. So that's probably why.
I'll leave that there. Right, let's talk about Sandro Tonali for a minute. I want one more from Chat Sport. It says, Rice walks into this Arsenal team. Not sure he does at Man City. The pull for City is the trophies. Look, Man City have the potential to pull off back-to-back trebles, right? If their transfer business goes as planned and they have Gvardiol, Kovacic and Declan Rice and they lose Laporte, Gundogan and
Mahrez, Mahrez.
Yeah, Mahrez. They are improved, so they will win the Premier League. They can certainly go and win the FA Cup. The Champions League finals at Wembley next year.
Oh, Man City. That's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, Man City back-to-back trebles. Watch
they can set
space.
Up, I think Pep and the thing we talk about the treble, Pep will be going for the quadruple next year. He treats the League Cup very seriously, Pep.
He does.
He
does.
And I think he'll be taking that quite seriously next year. Be interesting. Let's keep an eye on
that. A few Arsenal fans are asking about Jurgen Timber. So actually, I'm going to put Sandro Tonali on the back burner in a minute because we've been talking about Arsenal, so we might as well address another Arsenal player while we're here. That is fair. Jurgen Timber to Arsenal is definitely a hot story at the moment. talk of a 5-year contract, only about 150 grand a week by the sounds of things to get Jurrien Timber, which, to be honest, if that is how it plays out, that's an unbelievable deal to get. Yet again, we're seeing Arsenal fall a little bit short on valuation here. So the offer we're hearing is £30 million. Jurrien Timber's a £50 million footballer all day long. So what do you see as the ground that needs to be broken here?
Yeah, I think it's obviously with Ajax, whereas we know very experienced operators in this market, Dean. They were really hard with United last summer when it came to Anthony and Sandro Martinez. Ajax, if you look back, they got just about the value they were looking for on every one of those deals, especially Anthony. Timber's a really interesting one. Obviously, it's coming out that he's always loved Arsenal. He wants to go there, ignoring the fact that he wanted to go to Liverpool and Manchester United last summer. I'm still surprised that we're not seeing Liverpool United come in a bit stronger for Timber. I think he's going to be a superb fit. I remember I did a story about Timber probably 2 years ago now, and the way he was described to me was he's very William Gallas-esque. He can literally play anywhere across the back. And I think if Gallas was playing today, Dean, he would be that right back pivot. he would be, wouldn't he? He'd be playing that role. And so, but I think Timber is an outstanding player. I think I think Arsenal, it's hard because a lot of info is coming from Arsenal. They sound very confident on Timber, but they do on most of their deals. I think they know that I think they'll have to come up to at least 40 with add-ons, Dean. I do. And I think they will. But obviously, they have to be wary. It wouldn't surprise me for us to hear reports or get some leaks from Ajax that United are coming in for him. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. So I think Arsenal need to be wary on him.
If things go well for Arsenal this summer, if they've got Havertz in the bag, they might yet turn the situation around and get Declan Rice. Then they go and get Jurrien Timber. And then, say, for the fullback position, they did actually manage to go and get João Cancelo as well. Can you imagine Arsenal going to next season with those 4 additions on top of what they would manage to achieve last season? Like, that would be an unbelievable statement, especially at a time when you've got Man United static in the market, struggling to get going, Chelsea signing players that have fantastic potential, but are they going to hit the ground running at the start of next season? Possibly not. Liverpool, we don't still really know what we're getting from them at the start of next year. So with Arsenal's fixture list as well, they've got a really good start to next season. They've got fantastic opportunity to get off to a bright start and start challenging straight away at the top of that table. Joachim says Arsenal a big threat next season, a young team full of talent with Rice and Timber will be competitive. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But we should bear in mind.
I still think though, Dean, it'll be interesting to see where Havertz plays. I don't.
Number 8, I say.
Yeah, I just don't see that person. I think he'll be a bit higher. I think he may get that false number 9 position at times where he'll be the option instead of Jesus. And if he isn't, it'll surprise me because I still think they need that other option. Dean, Eddie Nketiah is not good enough to get them over the line. Hey, who knows? They might still come in for Vlahovic. If Havertz isn't going to be that other option at 9, it would surprise me because I think he might be. But if he's not, I still think they're missing something up there.
Yeah, I think the beauty of Havertz is that he can play there if you need him to, but Gabriel Jesus should be first choice every week. So I think that's probably it's the versatility of Havertz and the technical brilliance he's got.
I think some weeks we may see Jesus on the right, Havertz through the middle, and Saka on the left, or Martinelli. It's about the riches now. It's about the squad depth, isn't it? Which it does give them.
Yeah, it absolutely does give them that. And look, this team has come a long way in the last 2 years. Like it really wasn't that long ago that they were pairing up like Rob Holding and Pablo Mari at the back, and they had Lokonga sat in front of them.
And Tavares on the left, yeah.
Tavares on the left, Nicolas Pepe out wide, and Cedric at right back. Like, genuinely, a couple of years ago, that was Arsenal's starting lineup. It's unbelievable how they've got to this point so quick.
I think they're very fortunate that City were willing to do business with them.
They've been helped out by Arteta's mate, for sure. Yeah, lovely stuff. Let's go back now to Sandro Tonali, because it is a massive transfer that is actually happening right now. You've obviously been all over it being a Newcastle ITK. It's an interesting one, and actually he's playing right now, I think, isn't he? Tonali is in under 21 duty for Italy, which I find unbelievable, but this is often how Italy approach under 21 tournaments, is that they'll bring in experienced players to it. So they've got Willy Gnonto in the squad, and also they have got Sandro Tonali in the team. I was led to believe he was going to be playing. Yeah, he is. So Italy currently playing against France under 21s.
Who's the other Premier League player in that? Who's the other Premier League player in that Italian lineup? Can you see it, Dean? The lineup.
Udogie?
Yes, well spotted. The Tottenham
There we
back,
go.
who will be very interesting. Keep an eye on, guys. A player there, Scalvini, the centre half. A lot of people looking at him.
Yeah,
he's
and
been on
also
United's radar.
has he? Oh, right,
Yeah,
I wasn't aware of that. On the other side of this game, by the way, that's being played right now in the opposite midfield, Kone is playing, and don't know if he's out
Kefren
there.
Turam's playing as well. Yeah,
is he playing? I was going to say because Kefren Turam should be out there.
Kakere's in there. It's a 3-man midfield. Yeah, Cornier's holding it with Turam and Kakere ahead
there
of him.
You go.
So
you'll see the future of the Premier League tonight in the under-21 tournament.
Yeah, it's fascinating seeing that, and I tell you what, I do get a lot of stick a lot of the time, probably as I deserve on social, Dean. But when I first messaged saying 23-year-old Tonali will be captain in Italy's under-21s, the amount of stick I got for the street like that, it's like,
I mean, it does sound stupid, to be honest.
It does, yeah.
€70 million player wouldn't be playing at the under-21 tournament, but here he is. I believe he is skipper for the night. Where do you think he fits in at Newcastle? Obviously, we're all FPL lovers. I don't imagine that Sandro Tonali is a player we're going to need in our FPL team, but Bruno Guimaraes might be if he's given a bit more license. Do you think he will allow him to flourish?
I do. As you know, I'm a huge Bruno fan. No bigger Bruno fan than me anywhere, Dean, really. I think Bruno's one of the best in the Premier League. I think we'll sort of see a partnership developing between these two. I think some games Bruno might be the quarterback. But that'll be the genius, maybe, of Eddie Howe, where if he can mould these two as a partnership, and then with this other number 10 that they're trying to get, be it James Maddison, Szoboszlai, whoever it may be, I think they've got the makings of a wonderful midfield trio here. And Tonali, I know he's too good just to sit there and be a 6. But if he does just sit there in the 6, he's going to be exceptional. This Newcastle defence is that good with Botman. And don't forget, Newcastle are looking for a right-sided centre-half. So this defence will improve even more. I think with that solid defence, you don't need someone sat on Botman's toes. He brings the ball out, as does Shah. I think Bruno in that quarterback role, Tonali will be up and down. I think he might be just good old box-to-box midfielder, Tonali here. Let Bruno have the ball, win it for him. I like it, then. I think he fits massively. I know a lot of people watch a lot more Serie A than me, think they're not sure that he's perfect for this role because he is being signed to go alongside Bruno, maybe as defensive midfielder. I think he's a cracking fit. I like it.
Yeah, listen, he might take a little while to find his feet. He did at AC Milan. He took a long time to find his feet in Milan. But he's a young player, and he was even younger 3 years ago when he joined AC Milan. So that was understandable, the step up that he was making then. I'd say he's still inconsistent. I do watch a lot of AC Milan, and I love Tonali. I genuinely do. Like his technique, what he's capable of on the ball is unbelievable. But there are games when, he's just not going for him. A question we had earlier on, mate, came in from Grood Beast. He wanted to know if Newcastle were going to aim for Szoboszlai instead of Maddison. How do you view that question?
It's definitely something they're looking at. This is a player they like. He's a player they've considered. The only issue I have with that, Dean, is he's got this release clause of just over £60 million. It's just Szoboszlai might be more expensive than Maddison. So if you're not willing to pay for Maddison, why would you be willing to pay for him? And we know Maddison is their first choice. It's a really interesting one. I think either of them, imagine one of them two slotting in with Bruno and Tonali. That is a really spectacular possible midfield trio. It'd be a real worry for their rivals, like even Manchester United, in and around there, even Liverpool. They've got McAllister, but not much else at the minute.
The valuation thing does concern me because why are they happy to pay €70 million for Tonali, but they wouldn't go £55 million on James Maddison?
It's a strange one, Dean. They might still. Newcastle keep briefing, and we discussed this on the show 2 shows ago, and it did well on socials where there was a briefing going around at Newcastle. We're going to spend 75 million this window, which we doubted at the time. We rubbished it really, and that is proven now. They've just spent that on one player. Yeah, it's really interesting. For the sake of 5 to 10 million, are they going to let a player, James Maddison, who they bid 50 million for last summer, they've wanted him for over 12 months, Dane. Are they really going to let Maddison go?
Yeah.
I find it hard to believe they'll let him go, but beating Tottenham to him, it's not just a matter of matching the offers here. It's where Maddison wants to go, and still, it's a 50-50 for me still where he ends up this one. But I think signing someone like Tonali will help.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mark says, I said in Graham's first appearance that Bruno G could become more advanced. Yep, you did, Mark. Hello, thanks and welcome back to the chat. FPL River, Tonali would be a great signing for Newcastle. Is he really going to leave his boyhood team though? Yeah, he is, because it's a lot of money for AC Milan. It really is. And Milan have had, financial difficulties. If they want to continue to strengthen, which they're going to have to, they needed to cash in on someone. And Rafael Leao didn't end up going. Tonali is the guy that they've managed to stick up at a premium.
Mike Minions did. And they might get one over on Inter as well, Dean, because Inter thought they had David Fratesi over the line, the midfielder who turned down Brighton. Looks like Milan might step in for him, actually, as a Tonali replacement.
See, that's quite a nice one. Yeah, for sure. Matty says, for me, he is a younger version of Gattuso. I mean, I have seen this comparison a lot, and I think it stems from the fact that people used to compare Tonali to Pirlo, and then over the last couple of seasons, that's been changed. I think even he himself might have compared himself more to Gattuso.
I read that. Yeah, Pirlo said it something. I think he's a bit
someone
more,
mentioned it.
I'd say a bit more Verratti-ish, where not quite as defensive. Somewhere like that mold where, like Verratti, where he plays 6 and 8. I think he's a bit more Verratti-ish, but not quite that level. Not quite that level just yet.
Yeah, here's a question from NUFC Luke. Hello, mate. Who says, who do you think out of Maddison or Szoboszlai is a better fit at Newcastle? Now, what are they looking for? Because when I spoke to you a while about this and we were chatting about stories and stuff for work, and it seemed like you thought Maddison would probably play on the right of that Newcastle attack. Is that the only role, or do you think there's more to it than that?
No, I think that they want him to be that 10. They want someone to unlock the defenses, as we spoke about before. Newcastle did well last year, but that was in spite. Teams used to come at St James's, especially, and park the bus. We saw it in the first game of the season against Nottingham Forest. Forest were well on their way to a goalless draw there. It took a 25-yard screamer from Shah to break the deadlock. Sam Maximum and Almiron, as I've always said, they're not quite good enough. Joe Linton, great squad players, apart from Sam Maximum, who isn't great at anything. But Almiron and Joe Linton will become good squad players. But they need that someone else apart from Bruno to unlock these defences. And that's what they're looking for. And Maddison, there's no one better in the Premier League, who can score goal. I think Maddison is a delicious, brilliant fit for them. And they are looking as well as a wide forward as well, Dean. So they're looking at someone arguably on the left, but whoever they bring in would be at the head of a triangle, really, and maybe in the midfield. But I think they're looking at a number 10, and there's not too many better in Europe than them two who are available.
I think Szoboszlai might be better.
Oh, right. Well, I just think for me, I think Maddison, because you bring in Tonali in, or as you say, may take a little time to settle. I think you need that plug and play option.
Yeah, that's a good play. That's a good point. I mean,
if Maddison, he's going to come in straight away and hit the ground running. I think if you brought two of those in, Szoboszlai and Tonali, don't get me wrong, wonderful players. But if you had two of them who were settling in, a little bit of a risk.
Yeah. Szoboszlai is just magic, man. I love watching Szoboszlai, and I can't wait until the day he does land in the Premier League. It should have happened before now. Jody says, do player swap deals actually happen, or is that just a FIFA thing? It has happened. It's pretty rare. I mean, it's complicated, isn't it? Because you've got to match so much up.
Yeah, and FFP doesn't help because both sides want the various bits to be worth a lot more and a lot less. So they want the player. So if it was Phillips and Rice, maybe, where West Ham would like Phillips to be worth 20 million, where City getting him off the bill want him to be worth 70. Yeah. Different bits of FFP, isn't it? So that's why swap deals don't tend to get done. But it'd be interesting, loans and swaps. We might be hearing a bit more on that, especially Newcastle wise.
Mark keeps talking about Maddison's hips here. He's saying, I'm telling you, lads, Maddison can't play 38 games with that hip. And Bozzy says, yeah, Maddison always seems to miss a quarter of the season. As good as he is, I think teams see that as a risk. Momentum is everything in football, and you want players available.
Well, we did talk, Dean. There's a reason somewhere that it's a Tottenham and Newcastle battle for James Maddison.
Exactly. And there was a point when Man United and Man City were being linked with Maddison. It wasn't
Even
that long ago.
Arsenal, January time had a sniff, didn't they? And so I think he's capable. I just think at that price, it's a lot of money. But United fans, who would you rather have, James Maddison or Mason Mount? I know which one I'd rather.
Yeah, absolutely. That's true. Right. Mike says, hey guys, I know you did Chelsea yesterday, but do you feel Caicedo is a deal they can get done before other teams miss out, i.e. Rice, and come back in? Yeah, Chelsea are definitely looking to move forward with Caicedo at the moment. There's no doubt about that. He's not the only player that they're looking at, far from it. But yeah, there does seem to be some progress with it. They've obviously got decent relations with Brighton that have been built, and they're keen to stay respectful to their valuation, even if they might not feel right now that Caicedo is worth the 100 million that Brighton seem to be bumping up his valuation to be.
Well, I'm sure Brighton, the on-watchers, Dean, of this Rice situation, I'm sure Brighton are the happiest ones that they want to see Rice's valuation go up and up, because this Caicedo thing will, believe it or not, will be impacted by Rice.
Yeah, that is a good point. And Caicedo deal's certainly not getting any cheaper for Chelsea right now. So if they want him that badly, and he will be a good partner in that midfield with Enzo, then they should go and do it. I say that's a young central midfield. Enzo's 22 and he's 21. That is very, very young, and you're pinning a lot on them. But obviously, like, for players of that age, they are basically the best in the world. So it's fair enough. Mark loves your Borough shirt by the looks of things. Graham is a big Borough fan. That is good stuff. Let me think of some players that we haven't touched upon so far. Keep your questions coming in, people. We are here for another 20 minutes or so. İlkay Gundogan has joined Barcelona. That is a free deal, which people were starting to question at the end of last season and say, oh, Man City will get him to sign a new contract. Can they talk him around? And then people seemed a bit surprised when this deal actually happened. And I'm not entirely sure why, because this Barcelona deal has been on the cards for a couple of months, hasn't it?
Yeah, he's given his word. He's starting for Barcelona basically around Easter time, if not before, Dean. He's been up there since January. Man City, there's some commentators obviously saying that surprised that Man City letting him go. Man City weren't letting him go. It was down to the player. He wanted to go. You can't stop him. Man City don't keep any players who aren't happy. Hence the Bernardo Silva talk. He's an interesting one, Bernardo Silva, here, because we've both done reports, Dean. He, for whatever reason, he wants to leave. He wanted to leave last summer. He still wants to leave now, even though a Barcelona deal looks highly unlikely at this moment in time, purely because of the valuation. But it seems he'd rather go to Paris Saint-Germain than stay at City. Obviously, there is this Saudi interest as well. I still have been told he's more likely to go to PSG than Saudi. But either way, he wants out, Bernardo Silva. And that of all the one, it's a tough one. Losing Gundogan and Silva is going to be a tough one for Pep to get over. But if anyone's capable of doing it, it's City and Pep, because if Kovacic is already over the line, Gvardiol. Even if they don't get Rice, it will be someone else. Maybe Kimmich. Someone else. There's obviously someone else on their radar.
Yeah, absolutely. Sean says, do we think Mahrez leaves this summer too? Obviously, he's got the Saudi offers going in right now. I'll tell you what, Mahrez's numbers last season were brilliant. If you look back on his season now, considering he didn't seem to start that often, his numbers were great last season across all competitions.
They were, certainly did. But I think with Mahrez and Kyle Walker, what we're hearing, especially Mahrez, didn't play in either cup final. Walker didn't play in the Champions League final. That hurt them. That hurt them both. Not featuring in that. And I wouldn't underestimate that, because it doesn't come around very often. I was surprised that Mahrez didn't feature in either. I was surprised that Walker didn't start the Champions League final. And that's why we're seeing these links now. Both of them are really considering the future now. They just weren't impressed by what happened there. And these scars can run deep at times, Dean, and footballers, when they make their mind up, they can go. So whilst there is huge offers from Saudi, I think Mahrez especially, there's a reason behind it.
Yeah, well, Mark says that Mahrez had his run when Foden wasn't available, and that's probably true. That was probably true to a large degree. Mark
But
also says,
with Silva going, you would think Silva plays a lot of his time out wide, doesn't he? And Foden probably, is this time for Foden to go centrally? As we know, is the long-term plan. But I do wonder whether Pep will work very hard to keep Mahrez, because he does fill a crucial role in that team, and he can fill that Silva slot at times.
yeah, that's true. Mark also mentioned about Lucas Paqueta as one of Bruno's best mates. Could they be sniffing around him? Could have had him for 20 million less last season. I mean, look, it took him a while to get going at West Ham, didn't he? And he wasn't sure it was going to work out for him, to be honest, the way things were going. I thought he might end up a bit like Scamacca and be a non-runner, but he totally turned things around. He's a cult hero now at West Ham. They've got that chant about him. We buy any car, that one, and they love him. I don't think you'll be getting Paqueta at Newcastle this summer, do you?
No, I think the price would be slightly too much for Newcastle. Not that it couldn't have cost. We're talking about Piffy. Newcastle can buy any player, literally any player in the world that they want to. I think in terms of fair play, it'd be tough. It wouldn't surprise me to see Paqueta linked to his stuff. You know, was he that happy under David Moyes? No, it does seem like David Moyes is definitely staying at least for the last year of his contract now. Interesting one. One to keep an eye on, I would say, but it's very hard for any club around Europe to take a player from the Premier League, because he's on so much money. He costs so much money in the first place. So that is the thing. The Premier League, it's not just the top 6 who are dominant. It is the top 10, top 15 in the Premier League, because the outlay is so huge.
Yeah. People, if you could give us a like right now, that would be much appreciated, so we show up in people's timelines and such. That would be great. FPL River says, hasn't anyone moved to Saudi today? I don't think that actually have. But...
Well, I think the talks with Brozovic has accelerated, yeah. And the same team, I think it's Al Nassr, who are in for him. They're also doing William Carvalho, and that deal from Betis is getting there as well. There's so many deals that I didn't even. Someone told me about William Carvalho a few hours ago. Look, I missed it completely. I didn't even realize he was on their radar. But
no, I haven't heard him mentioned. No.
Yeah, so him and Brozovic may be at Al Nassr. So there's going to be so much like this. The way they're going, Dean, it's going to be a high class league, because we're not talking 2 or 3 players for every team here. We're talking 8 or 9.
Yeah, let us know in the comments. Are you going to be watching the Saudi Pro League next season? I'm genuinely interested as to what people's views are on this. Since Ronaldo moved there, I think I watched his first game, and I don't think I've watched any more. But this is a bit different now. Like the quality is going to be higher, and there's going to be more interest because there are more players there that we all like. Mark's gone straight in with a no. He will not be watching the
Interesting
SPL.
Though, about Ronaldo. Ronaldo got so much stick for going to Saudi, but now it's a done thing. Now it's like he must be thinking there, saying, "Oh, the amount of stick it was quite rabid at the time, wasn't it? The amount of stick he got for going to Saudi." And now he sat there going like, look at all these lads coming in now. Benzema's not getting stick. Kante's not getting stick. You know, Lionel Messi's still not getting any stick for going into Miami. It's just a popularity contest, isn't it?
Yeah, he's still earning more than all of them, though, mate. So he'll still be happy with what he's managed to do. Richard says, "Did I read that Man City have first refusal on Lavia to bolster their midfield options? Any legs in that? They do have first refusal, but only next year. So that does not kick in at the moment, so it doesn't really matter."
And Dean, only if a player agreed to it. A lot of these clauses, what people forget is, Dean, that there is the odd one where the player doesn't have a say on it. But most of them, if a player doesn't agree to it, it's not worth the player it's written on, not worth the paper it's written on anyway. So if Lavia had no intention of going back to City, it doesn't matter anyway, because he wouldn't sign his contract.
I mean, I think the buyback's £40 million, and you could get him for £40 million now anyway. So if they wanted him, they could go and get Lavia back. James Ward-Prowse linked with Fulham today. I've seen this played up quite heavily that he would like to go into Fulham as a potential replacement for João Palhinha, but João Palhinha not leaving Fulham this summer. So there's absolutely nothing to see in that story. James Ward-Prowse will be a nice squad player. pair up
Dean,
again with Harrison Reed.
you reminded me of Homer in The Simpsons where he just puts his hands over his ears and goes, la, la, la, I can't hear you. It's just where we're getting to.
I'll take £90 million. I'll take £90 million as the Daily Mail story goes. That's his valuation. If that lands, then okay, we'll go out and we'll sign Caicedo. That will be all right. Like I'll take, I'll be happy with that. Otherwise, we can't replace him. We can't replace him for 40 or 50 million. So it's not going to be worthwhile. We don't want any Mason Mount level players here at Fulham. We need the top boys. Going back to what people are talking about, the Saudi Premier League, the SPL, the Saudi Pro League, sorry, the SPL. Bozzy said he'd rather watch Wrexham games, to be honest. There's nothing wrong with that, to be honest. Watching Wrexham games is going to be great fun. They're US pre-season tour.
I watched some League Two. Dean, I watched some League Two last season, and I know what you like. You wouldn't like League Two, Dean.
Well, I don't mind watching Wrexham because it's got a narrative behind it.
Oh, this Wrexham, is it any different to Salford when they came up and tried to bad way? At least, so to be fair, I'm Richard Williams, who's the lead reporter at the Wrexham Evening Leader, as I'm sure you knew, the local paper, Dean there. He's one of my university friends. Wrexham are a huge club. They are a massive club. They if they got to the Championship, they could pull in 25, 30,000, but not far below the likes of our own Middlesbrough and Fulham. Wrexham, Dean, they're a huge club, huge. So they are different in that terminology. They are very different to a Salford because they are a sleeping giant. They're the only club in North Wales, so they do have a huge area. So yeah, it's going to make the documentary is going to make good watching next year. It really is. But they haven't made those inroads in the transfer market, Wrexham, just yet.
They haven't actually yet. No, they haven't. They're probably waiting. They're going to make a big splash. Adam said he'd rather watch St Albans. Nothing wrong with watching St Albans either. I've actually played at St Albans. Albans City, I believe it's called. Remember playing them away many years ago now. Keep your questions coming in. Mark asks about Wolves. Are they in danger of falling apart? I don't know about falling apart. They'll rescue themselves a little bit. The Ruben Neves money gives them a lifeline because Lopetegui's staying. You actually are pretty hot on Wolves, aren't you? Typically,
have you seen,
it's obviously going to be a lot of outs.
Nathan Collins is about to go to Brentford, and fair play to Wolves. If you're making money on Nathan Collins, who I thought had not a good season, they're making money on him.
You can say it.
Yeah, he was terrible. He was shocking. Wolves improved when Lopetegui came in, but that also coincided with Collins getting dropped. And that played a big part. Dawson and Kilman. So I think
he must have good analytics if Brentford are signing him.
Do you know what Brentford do? But all of these Brentford defenders, for me, Dean, I don't really agree. Christopher Ayer, Pinnock, Ben Mee, they've all got a rick in them. I've always thought that about those. It's probably just me, but I think 20. Then again, though, I was going to say 25 million for a Premier League centre half. Is that a lot of money nowadays? Dean, it's probably not. No. So he probably adds to the squad. But I think the fact that they're keeping Kilman, who is a wonderful player, Max Kilman, I think is as good as like a Levi Colwell. I think Max Kilman, they'll do well to hang on to him. I'm surprised Spurs haven't pushed harder. They haven't been linked. I'm surprised they haven't pushed harder for him because I think he's a potential England player, Kilman. I think he's that good. But Wolves need to keep some of these players. They've still got a good basis of a squad. João Gomes, the young Brazilian, outstanding player. But yeah, Lopetegui has to hope that he gets some of that Ruben Neves money, Dean. He really does.
Yeah. Mark also asked about Ndiaye, whether he'll re-sign for Sheffield United or will he go to Marseille? Wasn't he linked with Everton? I think. Was it Everton? I think.
Illiman. I think he's under contract for quite Illiman, and Ndiaye's under contract. He's a good player. Sheffield United's a tough one. We'll maybe touch on that one time, Dean, where they haven't got a big budget. The takeover hasn't gone. The takeover hasn't gone through at the minute. I'm told the club, everyone interested, thinks they're overvalued slightly. So they do have a Saudi Arabian owner, but unfortunately for them, he's the opposite of Piff. He's not. He's not. So I mean, how can you get a Saudi Arabian owner who doesn't want to spend? As it stands, Sheffield United are really. And I've heard there might be some sales coming at Sheffield United, so I didn't hear Ndiaye's name personally, but it wouldn't surprise me if he might be sold off. So that's a good question there. I keep an eye on Sheffield United.
Okay, 10 minutes left of the show. Get your questions in now. Eddie's arrived on the scene. He says, are United going to go back in for Kane? There were stories, I should say, on the back page of the Sun newspaper here today. A report saying Man United telling Harry Kane if he wants to move to Man United, he's the one that's going to have to make it happen. And he's going to have to force his way out of Tottenham and let them know he wants that transfer.
You've
Has
already answered
Harry
this for them,
Kane...
Dean. You've already answered this for them. 2 weeks ago, you explained why this isn't happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to happen. But unless Harry Kane suddenly, in the middle of this summer, wakes up in the middle of the night and he's having a nightmare about playing for Tottenham again for another season and not winning anything, and he phones his brother and says, "Charlie, get me out of here. I've got to go." It's going to take a moment for Harry Kane.
But the thing is, as well, Dean, United, as we discussed on the last show, and a few people disagreed, they're not having a good window at the minute. They're really, really not. And so, yeah, if they'd gone out and got Frankie de Jong, if they'd gone and got Julian Timber, and so then Kane might be sat there thinking, yeah, there's a real title contenders look to United now. If Mount was like a third signing, if he was helping the squad, they haven't done anything, and they're about to lose. They're about to lose David De Gea, and have it spend at least a quarter, if not half their budget on a new goalkeeper, which I hadn't budgeted for. If anything, it's less likely for me, Dean, that United go back in for Kane. It's less likely as it has been at any point this summer.
Yeah, there's just no signs of it at all. I'm not even sure they've got the money to buy Harry Kane, to be honest. Even if he was to say, yeah, I'm ready now, they'd be like, we haven't actually got the money, mate. I'm sorry. Can they take it over? Wait until this takeover's sorted out. We're not even sure when that's going to go through. Resting Pilgrim, which team will be panicking in the last couple of days because they've missed most of their targets? I think Man United we just covered, didn't we?
I thought, yeah. Obviously, Tottenham are going to be doing something, but I'm not sure whether they'll miss out on the targets, but Tottenham always like to be involved. I hope your Fulham aren't involved in that team when you lose.
We're always
Palhinha,
involved on deadline day. When
you lose Palhinha when Palhinha goes with 2 days to go, I hope you're not panicking too much. It's hard to tell, Dean, because there's going to be some of those teams at the bottom. I think
it seems like Everton, isn't it? Like Everton are the type of team that might panic because
it's the ones who lose players, isn't it? Yeah, it's the ones who lose players, Dean, isn't it? Where if the worst did happen, you lost Palhinha, you can't plan for that, can you?
No,
it's stuff like that. So we can't tell, but Have
you heard anything on Everton?
Nothing good.
Sorry, Charles.
I've heard, obviously, I thought Demarai Gray is interesting. Where for me, Demarai Gray is one of their best players. I thought he was a shining light for me when I saw him. Was he linked? It was a Fulham he was linked to, Dean?
Yeah, he was linked to Fulham.
He's a wonderful player, Demarai Gray, and I think if they lost Demarai Gray, I don't know where to go, Dean. Really, I think keeping Jordan Pickford. He was the only reason. Pickford really was one of the only reasons they stayed up last season. I think they'll probably keep him, but they've got money problems. We knew that, and because Sean Dyche is there, he has to cut his cloth accordingly, and he's going to play a certain way. It was horrible to watch. I watched them last day game of the season at Goodison, as you know, and it was dire. It was worse than anything I'd ever seen Burnley do. They were just hoofing the ball upfield. No, it's going to be a long summer for Everton and a long season.
Yeah. Okay. Sean asked about Liverpool. I'll do Liverpool, and then I'm going to get to Fulham again because a few more people are asking about Palhinha, so I will have a serious conversation about it before we go. Sean, are Liverpool linked with anyone else? The names I've currently got for their midfield that I'm checking out are Gravenberch, Kone, Thuram, Lavia, and Gabri Vega. That's the list of 5 that I've got that they're interested in to varying degrees, I would say. If I was to pick one that I would bank on them actually going for and trying to get, I'd probably go Kefren Thuram. I think that's where my money would be right now for them actually going. But if Gravenberch does become available, then I 100% think they go for it.
Yeah, you stole my window. I think Gravenberch is the one, Dean. I think they're really, really keen on him. I think him and Thuram are the main 2 there. I think Corney's probably back up. Gravenberch is a player who I think reminds me a bit of when they got Coutinho on loan, and there was another player that Liverpool did as well, where you can get a player on loan who doesn't work out. I think Gravenberch is a player they wanted before. I think he'd be an outstanding, but I'm surprised United aren't in on him, Dean. I really am. I think, and he said again, didn't he, last few days, he's already said, if I'm not playing at Bayern, which doesn't think he wants out, I think Gravenberch realises there's an opportunity here. He can go and sign for a Liverpool or United if they come in. I think Gravenberch will come in. I think because I think there's a potential loan deal to be had there as well. So I can really see him doing that. And then if they get him on loan, they can go and do Thuram as well. I think that's probably something Liverpool are looking at, Dean, where then they get the 3 midfielders and they've only paid for 2.
Yeah, exactly. And then, if they decide not to go in for Bellingham, not that Bellingham was going to pick them anyway, but they've got to show
How dare you?
They've got to show that they've got some proper value in the market. And so if they end up with 3 midfielders that are like top midfielders for not getting Bellingham, then that's absolutely fine. Hopefully one of them isn't João Palhinha, but I did link João Palhinha with Liverpool months ago now, probably March time was when I first heard that Liverpool had an eye on Palhinha with a view to following it up in the summer. They haven't yet, thankfully. But Adam does ask, joking aside, are there any real concerns Palhinha will leave? Look, when you're a club of Fulham size, of course, there's always concern that the best players leave. They do always leave. That's the truth. Mitrovic is the best Fulham player that's never left. Like that is a fact. It looks like Mitro probably is now Fulham for life. If he doesn't go now, then we've got him until the day he retires because he's been absolutely brilliant.
It's a long way to go in this window yet. There's a lot of number 9 movement to be had yet. Dave.
Yeah, true. But João Palhinha is absolutely outstanding. We're extremely lucky to have landed him. But at the time when we signed João Palhinha, the only other team in for him was Wolves.
Yeah.
That was his decision that summer, and we got him, and he's proven himself to be absolutely
Did they get
perfect.
Nunez? Did they get Nunez instead?
Yeah, I think they got Nunez instead. So
you definitely got the better end of that deal, didn't you?
Yeah. And now, look, if teams do come and knock on the door, then Fulham are going to have questions to answer. Is he going to go to West Ham? Like, does he see that enough of a step up? Is there any reason to go West Ham? I'm not sure there is, to be honest. But if there is other clubs from the next level up from that, then who knows? If Tottenham comes,
I'm surprised. Yeah, I'm surprised Tottenham haven't been there.
I'm surprised too.
I'm surprised that Chelsea aren't in for him. I really am. I think Chelsea, Palhinha and Caicedo would be outstanding business for Chelsea. And I can't believe he's not getting more love out there, Dean. Really, obviously, it helps that you try and ignore all the talk as well. People.
I mean, sadly, there's 2.5. Yeah, there's 2.5 months left to go. So
I think it's a really interesting one. I think Palhinha, you have to keep him, but you do have to keep him and Mitro. You got to keep the core of your team together. Otherwise, if you sold Palhinha, if you sold Mitro, then what are you even doing in the Premier League? What's the point?
Yeah, exactly. You've got to fight to keep these players. Otherwise, the only way is down. That's the time. We've got a few more minutes there. Any Bournemouth news? Obviously, Justin Kluivert is set to sign for Bournemouth. That's a player that Fulham actually have had an eye on for a long time now. Never quite gone for it. Justin Kluivert, people just never seem wholly convinced of whether he's going to fulfill his potential, do they? And I'm not sure he ever completely does, but it's a good signing for Bournemouth.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much game time he's going to see there, though, Dean. I think Utaru came in at Bournemouth was absolutely sensational. Marcus Tavernier from Middlesbrough, he was absolutely brilliant when he came in. But I think it's probably expanding the squad. I don't think Kluivert's a starter for Bournemouth as it stands. I really don't. I think he's
good squad player then.
Yeah, exactly. He's going to push it. But hey, we're seeing what they're paying for him. They're paying £12 million. What?
Yeah.
Literally, that's. You couldn't sign a good championship player for that at the moment.
No, that's true. It's a good deal. FPL River, who are favourites for Lavia? I don't know that there is necessarily a favourite in my head on this one, but I still think that Man United should be all over this. I really do think that in a moment when United have an obvious flaw in their team, and there's a player there who's waiting to be snapped up, is 100% leaving this summer. Why United wouldn't be in for Lavia, I just don't know. And they must have something else up their sleeve. Maybe they are going for a Rabiot or something, because it doesn't make sense to me that they wouldn't have already made moves in on that one.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think Lavia, I think, as you alluded to before with Chelsea, if that young midfield is probably a reason why they're not pushing harder for Lavia. I'm not saying he won't go to Chelsea, but I think he is, as we said before, second or third on a lot of teams' lists. I think once they get this first one through, it wouldn't surprise me to see Arsenal push for him, Dean, once they get Rice through, if and when. So I think he is very high in a lot of teams' lists, and I think he's, like we say, the Saudis, when it comes to the second wave of players, like this summer when we see the second wave, I think that will include Lavia.
Yeah, definitely. And Inda asked, Chiesa links to Liverpool, are they legit? I mean, I do believe Juventus would sell him because I've spoken to someone there who believes that like he could become available. I don't know that I'm buying that he's on his way to Liverpool, to be honest with you.
One of the few
it's probably the only thing Liverpool don't need.
Yeah, exactly. great minds, Dean. Yeah, I think he's as good as anything they've got. But I said Liverpool. What's he playing the right most of the time as well? So that's probably Mo Salah's position.
Yeah.
I like Caicedo. I like if like you see Chelsea doing Nico Jackson. They should be doing Chiesa. Something like that. He's a good player, but I think he's one of the ones who might stay, and I think Juventus obviously trying to keep Rabiot as well, and so I think a key part of that will be keeping Chiesa, because there will be other exits at Juventus. I think we need to keep an eye on Paul Pogba. I'm told he's a massive target for the Pro League. I think he might end up there, Dean, and with them getting that sort of money in, it helps them to keep the likes of Chiesa.
Yeah, that's a great way to end for tonight, I think. Paul Pogba to Saudi Arabia. Watch this space. Graeme was the first one to report that there was interest in taking Pogba there, and there are many angles to it that make a lot of sense. So watch this space. Graeme, thank you for tonight, mate. It's been great to tap into all your transfer wisdom. And thanks, everybody, for joining us on the live chat tonight and getting in so many questions and comments throughout the night. If you're tuning us on playback, please do also give us a like. If you've got any comments or questions, stick them down below and I will get round to answering them as well. We'll be back on Monday, 7 o'clock for another transfer show. We're also heading towards July now, which means that FPL app should drop properly and we can start seeing what our teams might look like next season. I'm excited about it, but before we get to that point, there will definitely be more transfers happening for your team. Thanks for joining us. We've been chasing the transfer. We'll see you Monday.